Hindemith Sonata is kind of like the standard of all standards. So many people play it, even from a very young age, because it's fairly accessible and the notes are not that difficult, even for fairly young players. But to really take the piece to the next level requires actually a lot of intentionality and care. In order to really take this piece to the next level, you need to know as much as you can about Hindemith himself. About his life and his career, but also his other music and his unique take on music theory. Go do your homework and really get to know his other works, like maybe the Symphonic Metamorphosis or the Matisse de Mahler Symphony. And when you do, you'll start to see some patterns and some crossover into the trombone sonata, and you'll be able to play it more authentically Hindemith. Another thing that was really important to Hindemith were patterns and structure. And so pay attention whenever he has you repeat phrases or repeat notes. Make sure that you do something with it. It always means something when Hindemith does that. You can't forget that this is truly a sonata. It's equal parts trombone piece and piano piece. And the piano part is very difficult. It's very fun to play, but also very difficult. Make sure that you get the piano part to your collaborator early, do lots of rehearsals, and make sure that you as the trombonist know the piano part backwards and forwards. If you do that, then you can have this wonderful communication back and forth with your pianist and make the piece come off so much better. One of the most common pitfalls I hear when people play this piece is their selection of tempos. Especially in the second and the third movements. I think a lot of people play the second movement way too slowly and the third movement way too fast. I understand why people choose a slow tempo for that second movement, because in so many pieces the second movement is supposed to be the slow movement. But it's specifically labeled as allegretto, which is a relative of allegro. And so it should have that allegro character where it's moving forward even though it's a little slower than maybe an allegro tempo. If you were to just Google some famous allegrettos by other composers, for example, the second movement of Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, you would notice that composers have a very specific character in mind when they compose an allegretto. And the bonus for us trombonists is that if you take it at that 80 to 84 beats per minute range, it also makes the breathing and the phrasing a whole lot easier to perform. Many people tend to play the third movement much faster than the marked tempo, which is very exciting, but not necessarily in line with the title of that movement, Das Lied des Raufbolds, which can be translated as Song of the Swashbuckler or Song of the Ruffian. I think it's helpful to think of sort of a heavy-booted dance, which will help keep the tempo anchored and not let it get away from you, which also leaves more room to build even more excitement in the final movement. It's very important to pace yourself in a piece like the Hindemith Sonata. Because it's so loud and so epic, it can be very tempting to start that way and then all of a sudden you find yourself at the end of the piece and you don't have the energy or the chops to finish well. If you will take your time and let the piece build organically, it'll be plenty loud, it'll be plenty exciting, but then you can sustain all the way to the end. Even though many of us start playing this piece when we're quite young, it's really important to keep revisiting the piece, keep looking after those details, keep improving it, because this is one of those pieces that's going to stay with you your entire career. You're always going to be playing this, and you always want to see if you can play it better each time you revisit the piece.